Hey everyone, it's OSK. Today I have for you a nice little video called The 4 Fundamentals of Spellbreak, and this is to address any of those new players who are finding it difficult to get into the game, or even experienced players who not exactly lost the plot but want to sort of improve their gameplay and get back to the basics. So hopefully this video, what it'll do is clear up a few concepts for you, help you refocus your mind. It makes it a little bit easier to sort of get your gameplay in focus whenever you have someone remind you what exactly is good in the game and what kind of mindset to be in. Also, I'll be doing some coaching sessions just like we did in the beta, and I'll be doing some more breakdowns. So if you'd like anything to be featured, just DM me. I do VODs and that sort of stuff, free of charge too. So it's just for the channel. So if you'd like to, go ahead and hit it in the description down below, or any sort of DM. So without further ado, here is the 4 fundamentals of Spellbreak, and I hope you enjoy. All right, so to start off with the 4 fundamentals of Spellbreak, first of all, this is going to be a little bit unscripted. We're just going to take you through this beautiful little PowerPoint presentation that I made. Yes, it is 2010. You're still in elementary school, and we still make PowerPoints. So here we go. 4 fundamentals of Spellbreak. Very, very basic stuff. Mechanics, positioning, pregame, and build synergy. Those are the 4 main things you want to keep in mind whenever you're going to go out and play Spellbreak. If you're looking to get better, if you're looking to improve faster than 2 weeks after you first started playing the game, which is about the time that I started getting good, then you're going to want to pay attention to all of these things. It will come with time, but here's a little fast forward button for you. So first thing to go over is mechanics. This is going to be the least intensive thing in the entire slideshow. And basically, it's your movement, your aiming, that sort of stuff. Getting the feel for the game, you know, how comfortable you are whenever you're in fights, how you know when to do certain things, like getting comfortable with your pinky on the shift key, or knowing like when to move or when to flick a certain way, or learning the trajectory of all the spells. That sort of stuff is going to be developed over time. And what I like to do, getting used to all this sort of stuff, is just load in the practice tool. There's all the gauntlets in the entire game right there at your disposal. Every rarity. You can get used to your mana timings. You can get used to levitating. You can get used to your quick little mouse flicks, that sort of thing. There's dummies there that now are actually pirated Marla skins. So you can look at that new skin, question yourself why you don't have enough money to buy the starter pack, and then just hit them in the face because you're molding. Also, download an aim trainer. There is a $10 program on Steam right now called Kovacs. It basically it like simulates CS:GO, Overwatch, that sort of stuff. You can choose your sensitivity. It's a first-person shooter type program, but it gets you used to all the sort of flicks with your mouse, and it's something that really helped me, especially when Spellbreak was down for downtime. This is what I use to keep my aim good, and then whenever Spellbreak comes back up, I'm still hitting all my shots. So Kovacs, very good one. There's another one on there that's free called Aimtastic, but it doesn't go as in-depth, and it's much less production quality. So $10 for Kovacs. I'm sure there's one online you can find. And here's a different one that you're not going to see very much. Play Tempest. Tempest, as a class in Spellbreak, is probably the most mechanically intensive class you'll ever play in this game. And it really makes you get used to all the sort of flicks you want to do whenever you hit your wind on the ground and do your little wind jump, do the tornado. You want to dash into your tornado and then flick onto a target. Maybe you're playing frost with it. Maybe you're playing fire, and you really need to get those flicks down. If you get good at Tempest, you can be good at any class that you play. So playing Tempest, another good one. Just keep in mind, it's not the most important thing that you're going to go and try to learn. Again, it's developed over time. Positioning and build synergy just by itself can carry you through a game, especially with some of the classes in here. And we'll be going over that a little bit later. And also there's just a lot of area of effect, what AoE means in Spellbreak. So I can throw down a toxic cloud and then light it on fire for a really big area of effect that'll do 20 damage per tick. And that's called a dragon fire. And that sort of stuff is going to be really important. I won't go over it too much in this video. This is sort of a basic breakdown of all this stuff. But aim isn't exactly the most important thing. It helps a lot, especially on different classes, but you can get around it if you're not that good at aiming yet. And then this is just reiterating that this is the focus of the mechanics. Just keep in mind that movement in this game is going to be a lot more important than just basic aim. It's really easy to aim in this game, but movement's going to be the most important thing. Getting used to your runes, knowing your timings with your mana pool on levitate, like being efficient with that. That's going to be the most important thing. And movement and aim are going to be the most important for Frostborn, Conduit, Toxicologist, and Tempest. Tempest, like we mentioned, and then these other three. Frostborn's based on ice. It's a sniper, so you need to be pinpoint accurate. Conduit is a it's kind of like a really, really slow automatic assault rifle if you're coming from an FPS background. It's, again, pinpoint, almost zero travel time, a little bit of lead. And then Toxicologist is a shotgun class. You may not think that it requires a bunch of aim, but it's a little narrow in the closer ranges, so you need to be good at aiming that for the most damage you can get. Stone Shaper and Pyromancer. Pyromancer has a skill called Combust, which makes your AoE on the actual fireball much bigger. I think it's like 200% bigger. So, like, that's a big fireball. And then Stone Shaper, you've probably seen it in some videos or on stream. You literally slam your fist down, and it creates a giant wave of stone on the ground. Just keep in mind that Stone Shaper is not going to be good for aerial targets, but you also have a giant boulder you can fire, so there's that too. And movement, like we said, getting used to your runes, getting used to your levitate, that sort of thing that's going to really carry you through this game. Positioning, this is one of the most important topics. Knowing what sort of positioning can help you in certain fights. Let's say you're going against Frostborn, you want to be behind cover. Going against a Stone Shaper OP, by the way, just kidding. You want to be off the ground, maybe on a higher surface than what you're used to. And this, because of that, this is sometimes a win condition if you can play around it. Just positioning by itself. You can run the complete wrong runes. You can run the complete wrong offhand gauntlet on your build. If you can position right against other people's builds, this sometimes can just win you the game outright against players who don't know what they're doing. And it ties in with movement. You can use your levitate and runes to get into the correct positioning. Let's say you're on the ground, on a lower ground, you want to get to a higher platform. Hit your dash rune, get on that higher platform, boom, you just use a rune to get your positioning. Alternatively, you can levitate up there, but if your levitate's not enough, then just use your rune. And some class abilities are also available for the positioning. I personally like running Pyromancer. It has a skill called Firefly, and you can lay down your firewall, and it lets you fly through it. This lets you fly upwards, of course, left, right, wherever you want to fly. And it's really, really useful. I like it a lot. I like using it with dash because it preserves momentum, but that's a different sort of thing. So just keep in mind what you can use for your positioning. And build mindfulness comes into this too. Example, like we said, high ground versus a Stone Shaper, hiding behind cover versus a Frostborn, or even a Conduit too. Conduits can move around a little bit better because they can recharge their runes, but you never want to be like without cover against a Conduit because they can just laser you down, and they have a skill that increases damage for the lightning bolt over time the more that they shoot it. So this is something to keep in mind. And also knowing what positioning benefits your build versus the opponent. Like if you're a Stone Shaper, you want to be on the ground. You want to catch them as they're landing on the same plane as you. And also Stone Shapers can make their wave go over mountains in some instances. So maybe you want to be on the other side of the hill so he can't hit you with a fireball, but your wave is going to travel over the hill. So stuff like that. If you're a Frostborn, you want to be kind of in an open, flat area where there's not a lot of cover, and you want to be above all that. So it's harder for your opponent to hit. So something like that to keep in mind as well. Now going into the third fundamental, we have the pregame. This is before you press that queue up button, you press ready, you're going into your class selection, and you can choose your talents. And that's what we're going to be talking about first, actually, is talents. So you need to know what strong talent combinations that there are. And I will be making a talent tier list at some point in the future. Not right now, but at some point in the future. There are some that are clearly better than others, and you only have 6 points to choose. So, and you have 3 different categories. Naturally, you'd think a 2-2-2 combination would be good. 2 in the mind, 2 in the body, 2 in the spirit talents. So I won't go over that in this video, but you want to keep in mind which talents are going to complement your class too, and just which ones are strong outright, no matter what you're running. So again, knowing what talents complement which class. There are some that are better than others. Some are general use. We already went over that. And really know why you're picking certain talents. Like I see some people out here saying, "Oh, escapist. It lets you increase your speed after you get hit, but the key word there is after you get hit. So are you planning to get hit a lot? Like, why are you picking the talent? Yes, you can get hit and go faster, but that requires you to lose shield and HP. So it's not really that good of a trade-off, you know? Also, there's some other ones, and if you know like the most widely one that you see out there, it involves a glowing player model that gives me nightmares. You know which one I'm talking about. Why are you picking it? Are you planning on dying? Like, why? You know, it's just gonna make it take a little bit longer. Like, it's not gonna be that useful. So just know why you're picking talents. It could look attractive on the face, but ask yourself, how is this gonna benefit me in my play style? So keep that in mind. And picking a class, what gauntlet do you like using the most? That's going to be the main question you want to ask yourself. Also, there's a few really advanced mechanics that you can get used to in certain classes. Like Tempest, for example, you can wind jump and you stay in the air all the time. That's something very unique to that class. You don't find it anywhere else. Also, a Toxicologist, you get extra damage whenever you go invis, or invisible for those of you that don't know. So that's something to keep in mind as well. You can bounce off your clouds. You get spreading sickness. You throw 3 clouds. You can literally just go in between them, and it's a great thing. It's very, very specific to that class. So that's part of it. Knowing what play style this class complement. So do you like being up close and personal? Do you like staying at a distance? Do you like really making sure that everyone, like if you're going into a third party situation and you really want to capitalize on everyone being distracted and just like lasering down free damage, this is the kind of stuff you need to think about when you're picking a class. And also, what's your main source of damage? Is it going to be the gauntlet that you chose to be a part of that class, or are you going to be like in an offhand gauntlet situation? Like with Tempest, you use your wind gauntlet to stay in the air, but you want to think about what your offhand gauntlet is, so your squall skill can apply its increased damage to that offhand, so it makes it easier to burst people down. Like, it's just that sort of stuff. What's your main source of damage? And also, what other gauntlets, runes, and talents make the most sense for your class? So this goes back into picking talents, like knowing what makes, just what makes the most sense for you. Like, are you going to be engaging and disengaging a whole lot? Are you going to be staying in long, sustained fights? Are you just looking to stay out of the fight and just poke damage from a distance? Like, this is the kind of stuff that you need to think about. And this will go into our last point, which is build synergy, the 4th fundamental. And this is not as important as, say, positioning or really mechanics. Mechanics are important, but I'd say this is about the same as pregame. So you need to think about, for your complete build, this is with talents, classes, everything. What is your goal? And this is kind of what I touched on earlier. Do you want to be close range? Do you want to be mid range? Do you want to be long range? Or do you want to do some area lockdown? Like, what do you want to do? This is the kind of stuff you need to think about. This is going to influence the function of your class. Are you going to go in as a Toxicologist, be invisible, and get some sneak damage onto some people with Outbreak, and then get back out of the combat? Like, are you going to be an assassin? Are you going to be a mid-range bomber? Are you going to be a sniper? Like, what are you actually trying to do? This is what you need to think about. And also to make sure you know where you're strong, and this also goes back to the previous point, is your final build with all the offhand gauntlets and all the runes that you have, are you going to be wanting to be in that close range engagement? Are you going to be wanting to be at a distance? Where are you strong, and where does your build excel? This is the kind of stuff you need to think about. And as an example, let's say I'm running a Pyromancer build and my offhand gauntlet is a Toxic. So right there you have your Dragonfire combination where you toss your Toxic Cloud and then you light it on fire and it makes a giant explosion and it can tick people for a lot of damage. Neither of those gauntlets cover your long range. So you need to really avoid any sort of long range engagements, and you need to have another tool like your rune to close the distance whenever someone's trying to shoot you from long range. You need to have some better way to avoid than just sidestepping. So this is the kind of thing you need to think about for build synergy. And also, just know your play style. Like, are you going for burst, sustain, constant damage, third party? Are you specializing in third partying people and making sure that everyone's low once a fight's over? This sort of thing. So the third party specialty, for example, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, you could play a Frostborn. They have a skill in there that increases your frost damage by, I think it's 35%. I don't know it off the top of my head, but you can literally sit back, just frost people down, and yeah, you can get quick exiles, but you can also just make sure that everyone gets low, so that whenever the fight completely fizzles out, you can just run up or even just snipe and make sure that everybody that was involved in that fight never makes it back. So it's free exiles for you. So that's what I mean by third-party specialty. But you want to know what you want to do with your final build. And then, again, tying this back in, what final loadout are you looking for? And these are the things they want to keep in mind: your rune, your offhand gauntlet, and your talents. This goes back, this literally just ties literally everything that we just talked about all into itself. This is what you want to be thinking about whenever you're looting, whenever you're looking at all the runes you're passing up, whenever you're looking at all of the different rarities of gauntlets you want. Like, there are some instances where I'll be playing Pyromancer, and sometimes my aim just really won't feel very good. Okay, so I know that instead of running something like a Frost that requires pinpoint accuracy, maybe I want to run a Toxic instead. So I can lay down a huge amount of AoE. Maybe I want to run a Stone if I'm feeling especially bad in the mechanics department. Like, this is the kind of thing that I want to think about. And also what rune. As a Pyromancer, for example, I'm not going to get a lot of value from getting an invisibility rune, because if I activate invisibility, it's not really going to give me an advantage at getting into and out of fights. Like, sure, it can make me invisible, but if I'm in the middle of a fight and I'm on fire, or I'm getting constantly burst down, then it's not really going to do me any good to try to go invisible, because the damage that I'm getting hit with is going to get me out of invisibility. So this sort of thing is what you want to think about. Also, your offhand gauntlet, we kind of covered that. Like, you really want to cover for your weaknesses, or just really, really well define what you want to do with your class. So again, we talked about having a Dragonfire build, having some increased damage on stone. You could run a Frost Gauntlet to get some long range, that sort of stuff. So just think about that whenever you're going in your build synergy. And that is pretty much it. I mean, there's nothing left. So your 4 fundamentals of Spellbreak. You have your mechanics, you have your positioning, you have your pregame, you have your build synergy. Just think about those 4 things whenever you go into your next game. Or if you're out of the game, think about what of those 4 fundamentals could I do better in so that I can succeed next time. And that's pretty much it.